What's going on, gamers? Today we're going to be jumping back into a bit more Gotham Knights, and I'm going to be going over what I believe needs to happen in order for the Heroic Assault multiplayer mode to be successful upon its release. If that interests you, that's coming up next. Welcome back everybody. Today I'm going to be going over some things I really hope are implemented when the Heroic Assault mode drops for Gotham Knights. Now if you're wondering exactly what the 4-player mode will entail, when it does actually drop on the 29th of November in roughly 3 weeks time, then you're probably going to need to get in line, as you're not the only one. In fact, Warner Bros. Montreal have been very tight-lipped about this feature. The only thing we know is from the Gotham Knights official website, and to be honest, it amounts to not much whatsoever. There's going to be a multiplayer mode coming soon that can be played in up to 4 players and has you taking on enemies as well as completing certain objectives in order to beat each floor or stage, with there being 30 in total. Honestly, there's not much to go on. They've been very tight-lipped about this, there's been no publicity on it. Even their Twitter account has been completely silent on this aspect of the game, so we're just kinda left hanging. So here's some things that I really hope make it into the game mode in order to make it successful. Now the first one, and this may well upset some people straight off the bat, but there's gonna be a reason for it. And that's that I think you need to start from scratch. You shouldn't carry your gear across, your character should probably be low level, and you're gonna make progress as you work your way through it. Now if you're like me, you've completed Gotham Knights game, then probably ended up completing it again on New Game Plus and made your way to level 40. Once your character is maxed out at 40, you can then go around earning the very best gear and grind your way through Gotham Knights encounters, making some truly amazing builds. My first thought was that all of this hard work had better carry across, as I'd put quite a lot of hours into many of my characters, and if it didn't, then what was I actually doing it for? However, now I've completely U-turned on this and believe it probably shouldn't carry across. The reason for that is that your characters will be just too powerful at the start. We need to start from scratch and progress and earn gear as we go in order for the game mode to actually feel progressing. We already know that it's standalone content, and if our characters are brought across in that fully maxed out gear, then I'm thinking this probably will be far too easy and you may well be able to complete it on the very first night. Let's face it, if you're like me, you may well have builds that can make you nigh on unstoppable, and if you completely smash through this in a few hours with your buddies, then what's going to make you come back for more? Now next up, and this one's not a guarantee by any means, but I think they need to add some more loot. There's a good chance you'll be able to earn loot in the game mode, and like I said before, I think it does need to feel fresh. They could quite easily give you new loot drops, or up some of the heroic drops that are already in the game to have more mod slots and stats, in order to change up the builds that you're going to end up with, rather than you aiming for the builds that you've already made in the main campaign. Now another one that they need to address is going to be the difficulty level. This needs to be upped massively. It needs to be very, very hard, definitely harder than what we've got in the game currently, as once you complete the main game and go around gathering your legendary gear and have some nice builds on, even on the hardest setting the game becomes quite easy. If you have 4 people with maxed out builds and gear, I don't think this mode will be much of a challenge unless they put a new difficulty setting in or up the scan of the enemies because it's 4 players. Obviously with each player making it much more intense. So I'm really hoping they put a higher difficulty in and it makes you play as a team in order to complete the levels. If you're able to completely tear through everything on day 1, the longevity of the game will definitely be compromised, so I for one am hoping this is quite difficult and something you have to work towards in order to beat. Next up, I think you should be able to play as any player. Now in the main campaign, if you play co-op, you can jump in as the same person, it doesn't matter. I know this is a standalone mode and some of you may be thinking you should only be able to pick one of each person in order to keep it realistic, but I don't think overall this game is going for realism. If they make it so you can only pick one of each class, for example one Nightwing, one Batgirl, one Red Hood and one Robin, it's going to probably make the player base a little bit smaller from the start, as some people have put many hours into their favourites and will want to be playing them when this mode comes out. If instead you're only allowed to choose the option that's available, it may well dwindle the player base and it may make it that it's not quite as fun. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this works, and if you are able to tally up more than one of each character, expect to see a lot of Nightwings and probably Batgirls around. But overall I think this will make the game the most enjoyable and will allow anyone to jump in, play whoever they want. jumping over to an aspect I definitely think they need, and that's going to be bosses or mini bosses. This one is going to be essential. You're going to need to have some kind of gated points where you team up to tackle the toughest enemies, and this mode is 30 stages, so they could quite easily do that. Maybe every 5 stages, or if that's too many, then at least every 10. They could chuck in some kind of new tough elite enemy, or if we're lucky, even a boss, whether it be one we've already played against, for example Harley, Clayface, Mr. Freeze, one of those man-bats, or even if we're lucky enough for it to be someone entirely new like a Two-Face, or maybe even just an elite enemy. This really needs to happen in order to help liven up the game mode and add some challenge overall. Now, another thing that this game needs to be, and it probably shouldn't be said, but it needs to be fun and it needs to have replayability. Modes like this have been around for quite some time. Some of them have been done very well and will keep people jumping back in for more. Others have been done pretty badly, I would say, and they don't last very long at all and don't tend to interest people. If these are done right, they can be very compelling to play, so it needs to have that oomph factor. If anyone has ever played the Horde mode in Gears of War, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, and for many, far after you were completing the main game, people were still jumping back into that, and are even still to this day. The game needs to find a way to bring you back to this, play with your friends, have a lot of enjoyment, but feel like you're making some kind of progress, whether it be making your character stronger or earning random rewards. It needs to have a reason for you to play it, and it needs to feel fun and exciting as you play. Now lastly, but definitely in my eyes the most importantly, they need to make the connection stable. The main game at the moment, they're doing a lot of patches, they've had quite a few issues with it I'd say, but across consoles mostly I believe at the moment, especially with myself being on Xbox, I find that the connectivity to other players can be very hit and miss, and definitely still has its fair share of issues. Most times you're going to be fighting crime, you're going to be doing those crime activities at endgame, and then all of a sudden you're going to be kicked back to the dashboard for absolutely no reason.
Why?
Literally the game just can't seem to keep a host, as even they tend to get kicked off their session as well. So in order for this mode to work, it definitely needs to be a bit more stable. Nobody wants to be progressing through waves of enemies, building your team up, having a lot of fun, and then being kicked on wave 20 when you feel like you're going to be able to complete it, and completely having to start again. This would completely ruin the enjoyment of this game mode. So hopefully, because it doesn't have to render the whole city, this will be the case, and everything will be in a much better place. But like I said, only time will tell, as we have absolutely zero to go on at the moment. But yeah, let me know in the comments, what are you all hoping makes it into this game mode? Would you like your characters to jump straight across, fully kitted out? Or like me, do you think it's probably better if you start again? As always, Full Things Gaming, Full Things Xbox, take care. I'll see you on the next day.